Ebben a videóban Clara történetét követheted végig angol és magyar felirattal egyaránt. Jó szórakozást és tanulást kívánok!
My name is Clara. I am 54 years old. Many years ago, I worked for a wealthy family in Budapest. Their home was large and filled with beautiful things. There were wide halls, tall windows, and soft chairs everywhere. Each day, I cleaned the rooms, washed the floors, and helped in the kitchen. The father's name was Martin, the mother's name was Julia, and their little boy was Oliver. I liked my work, and I felt happy there. I believed I would stay for many years. The family owned many fine things: gold lamps, silver dishes, and old paintings that hung on the walls. Julia had many pieces of jewelry, rings, necklaces, and watches. She loved one gold watch more than any other. She wore it every day and kept it close. I knew how much it meant to her, so I was always careful when I cleaned her room. But one morning, everything changed. Julia could not find her gold watch. She looked in her room, but it was gone. She checked the kitchen, the garden, everywhere. She asked Martin and Oliver if they had seen it. Then she turned to me. I said I hadn't seen it either. She stared at me for a long time, and I felt a cold fear inside. That afternoon, things became worse. Martin called me into the living room. Julia stood beside him, and Oliver hid behind her. Martin spoke with a firm voice. He said they still couldn't find the watch, and although they had trusted me, now they were not sure. I tried to speak, but my voice shook. Martin told me I had to leave the house, at once, and not come back. Julia didn't meet my eyes. Oliver said nothing. My hands trembled as I packed my small bag. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I walked out of the big house and sat on the street with my bag. I didn't know where to go. I felt small and alone. People passed by, but no one looked at me. I thought about the house, the garden, and little Oliver. I thought about the happy days I had lost. I didn't understand why they believed I took the watch. I had always been honest and kind. I cleaned their home as if it were my own. But now, they thought I was a thief. I sat there for a long time, cold and tired, wishing the day would end. When the sun went down, I wondered where I could sleep. I had no home and no family in the city. My bag held only a few clothes and a handful of coins. I got up and began to walk, but my legs were heavy. Near a small park, I found a bench. It wasn't soft, but it was a place to rest. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, though my mind was full of sad thoughts. I missed my little room in the big house. I missed Oliver's laugh in the mornings. When I woke the next day, my back hurt from the bench. My clothes were dirty and my hair was messy. I went to a small cafe and used my last coins to buy a piece of bread. The woman at the counter looked at me without kindness. I sat by the window and ate slowly. Later, I went to the market to look for work. I asked many people if they needed help. Some said no, others didn't even answer. A man selling apples told me to move along. I tried to stay strong, but my heart felt broken. I wanted to cry, but I kept the tears inside. That evening, I sat again near the park. I thought about my life before. I thought about Julia and Martin. I thought about Oliver's small hands when he gave me flowers. I wondered if they missed me, or if they had already forgotten me. Suddenly, I heard someone call my name. I looked up and saw a woman running toward me. It was Julia. Her face was red, and she wore a long beige coat. In her hand, she held something small and shining. My heart started to beat fast. I stood up, unsure what to do or say. Why was she here? What did she want from me now? Julia came closer and opened her hand. Inside was the gold watch. It wasn't lost. It was never stolen. Her eyes were full of tears. She told me they had found it behind a large armchair in the living room when they moved the furniture to clean. Her voice shook as she said she was sorry for everything. Her face showed real regret. I looked at the watch, then at Julia. I felt relief that I wasn't a thief, but sadness too. Anger burned quietly in my chest. They hadn't trusted me. I wanted to shout, but no words came. Julia asked me to come back. She said they missed me, that Oliver cried for me every night. But I stayed silent. I didn't take her hand. I didn't move. I just looked at her standing there with the watch. I thought about the harsh words they'd spoken, the long, cold night on the bench, the way they turned away when I told the truth. I wanted to forgive her, but forgiveness isn't simple. Julia spoke again. She said Martin felt terrible too, and that Oliver asked for me every morning. She said they wanted me back at the house, my old room, my bed, my work. She promised they would never doubt me again. I listened, but I didn't answer. I didn't know if I could trust them anymore. Trust breaks easily, but takes time to rebuild. It's hard to return to a place where your heart once broke. Julia slipped the watch into her pocket and wiped her tears. She said she would understand if I couldn't forgive them, that she just wanted me to know the truth. Her voice was soft and trembling. I could see she truly felt sorry, but my heart stayed cold. I thought about finding a new place, one where trust still meant something. Sometimes, it's better to move forward than to go back. Julia waited for me to speak, but I only shook my head. I picked up my bag and began to walk away. I heard Julia call my name again, but I didn't turn around. I needed a new path, a better one. I didn't know where I would sleep or work that night, but I knew one thing: I wanted a fresh start. As I walked, I passed a small bakery with a warm light in the window. Inside, a woman was arranging loaves of bread in baskets. She looked kind and focused. I watched her for a moment and thought, maybe this was a sign. I opened the door and stepped inside. The woman behind the counter looked up and gave me a gentle smile. Her face was warm and kind. I walked slowly to her and said hello. I asked if she needed any help. I told her I could clean, carry baskets, and serve customers. Her name was Anna. She said she owned the bakery with her husband, Peter. She looked at my tired face and messy clothes for a moment, saying nothing. I waited, trying not to lose hope. Then she finally said I could help clean the bakery in the mornings. She told me the pay would be small, but I would have food and a place to sleep. My eyes filled with tears, but I quickly looked down and whispered, "Thank you." Anna led me to a small room behind the bakery. It had a single bed, a small table, and a tiny window. It wasn't large or fancy like my old room, but it was warm and safe. I placed my bag on the floor and sat on the bed. I felt so tired, yet a quiet strength grew inside me. I had a place to stay, and a chance to begin again. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in many days. The next morning, I woke early. I washed my face, brushed my hair, and wanted to look ready for a new start. I swept the floor, cleaned the tables, and washed the windows until they shone. Anna smiled when she saw my work. She said I was careful and quick. Her husband, Peter, smiled too, and gave me a warm piece of bread straight from the oven. I felt happy again. I was no longer a lost woman. Anna and Peter never spoke to me with cold voices. They trusted me. One evening, after a long day of work, Anna sat with me while the smell of fresh bread filled the air. She asked about my past. I told her a little about the wealthy family, the gold watch, and how they sent me away. She listened quietly and said that sometimes people make terrible mistakes, and good people suffer because of them. Her words comforted me, and I began to smile again. One afternoon, as I was cleaning the window, I saw Oliver across the street. He was holding his mother's hand. Julia stood beside him, looking at the bakery. For a moment, our eyes met. My heart jumped. Oliver waved his small hand at me. Julia smiled, a soft, sad smile. Then they turned and disappeared into the busy street. I stood there for a long time, watching them go. I wanted to run after them, to call their names, but I didn't. I knew I wasn't the same person anymore. My life had changed. I had changed. Sometimes love isn't enough when trust is broken. I slowly wiped the glass and went back to work. Anna noticed I was quiet, but she didn't ask why. She just smiled and said, "You're safe here." I smiled back and said, "Thank you." I realized not everyone needed to know my past. What mattered now was my future. As the days went by, the bakery became busier and filled with the smell of fresh bread each morning. One evening, Peter came to me with a small envelope. Inside was my first week's pay. I held the money carefully in my hands. It wasn't much, but it was mine, earned by my own work. I decided to save it. I dreamed that one day I might rent my own little room, maybe even open a bakery of my own. My heart still carried old scars, but I felt strong. I had gone through pain and built a new life from it. One sunny afternoon, while I was arranging flowers in the shop window, I noticed a letter on the table. My name was written on it. I opened it with trembling hands. It was from Julia. She wrote about Oliver, about how much they missed me, and about how sorry she felt. She asked if I could visit one day. I held the letter for a long time, hearing her voice in every word. I could almost see Oliver's small hands reaching out for mine. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I needed time to think. That evening, I told Anna about the letter. She listened quietly, and when I finished, she simply said, "Follow your heart." Her words stayed with me through the night. I realized I couldn't live stuck between the past and the present. I had built a new life, but part of me still belonged to the old one. The next morning, I packed a small bag. I wore my best dress and brushed my hair carefully. I told Anna and Peter that I would be gone for one day. They smiled and wished me luck. My heart was beating fast as I walked through the city streets toward the big house. When I reached the gate, I stood there for a long time before ringing the bell. Julia opened the door. She stepped aside and let me in without saying a word. Oliver ran to me and hugged me tightly. My eyes filled with tears. Julia watched us, her eyes wet too. She said she was sorry. Again and again. She said she should never have doubted me. I listened in silence. Forgiveness is never easy, but it's possible when hearts are open. We sat in the garden and drank tea. Oliver showed me his toys and talked about school. Julia asked about my life at the bakery. I told her about Anna and Peter and the kindness they had shown me. It felt strange to sit there again. Strange, but good. When the sun began to set, I stood up to leave. Julia asked if I would stay for dinner, but I said no. I needed to return to my new home. I hugged Oliver and kissed his forehead. Then I shook Julia's hand and smiled. I felt no anger, no sadness, only peace. As I walked away, I thought about everything I had lost. The watch, the trust, the home. But I also thought about what I had found. Strength, kindness, and a new beginning. Sometimes losing something helps you discover what truly matters.
Ha tetszett, kérlek segítsd munkánkat egy feliratkozással, lájkkal vagy megosztással. Ha folytatnád a tanulást, nézd meg ezt a videót is.